Hello, everyone, and welcome to the program. This is Sunday Politics on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbaloye in Lagos. Tonight, we begin with issues of national security. The Nigerian military has been involved in a series of activities, including civil and combat operations. The controversy over the role of the military operatives since the shooting at the Lekki toll gate on the 20th of October got back to the discourse on the national level yesterday when the Brigadier General in charge of the 81st Division of the Nigerian Army said the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, invited him and spoke about the role of his men at that scene. Take a listen to him.
Said the army was unhappy that he said he did not ask the army to intervene. But I'm sure after we've watched everything, we saw he had more than reasonable grounds to ask the army to intervene. Perhaps it was the way everything went that made him say so. That afternoon, he had called the Chief of Army Staff and the GOC. After asking the Commander 9 Brigade to intervene, the Commander 9 Brigade could not intervene because the procedure was not followed. But
well, you heard the Brigadier General there about the intervention of the military there at the Lekki toll, the shooting incident at the Lekki toll gate. About the aftermath of the EndSARS protest and the freezing of the account of some people linked to the protest, Pastor Tunde Bakare today bared his mind on the approach of the federal government. Take a listen to Pastor Tunde Bakare on that.
Some of the actions recently taken by the government on the heels of the EndSARS protest may need to be reversed sooner rather than later in our collective best interest so that they do not trigger further protests. Among such policy actions is the freezing of the accounts of young Nigerians who reportedly sponsored the protests. While I admit that under our extant laws, banks may freeze an account upon an ex parte order granted to a law enforcement agency by a court of competent jurisdiction for the purpose of investigation, these provisions of our law should not be used to intimidate Nigerian youths simply because they engage in and promoted protests against the inactions of government.
Well, there are several stories on the Nigerian military, the national security issue, the budget of the military, the efforts in the Northeast, and several other issues. So tonight, we're bringing on the table the matter of the Nigerian Army and the national security. We shall be speaking with the chairman of the Army Committee in the Senate, Senator Ali Ndume. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Thank you so much, Senator, for coming tonight on the program. Senator, you are a representative of the people. Let me get your quick reactions to some of these stories. First, on the comment made by Pastor Tunde Bakare.
Well, actually, I really didn't want to be involved in these issues that relate to SARS because there is no clear involvement or clear picture of what actually went wrong. But as he clearly said, he made a statement clearly that yes, the government can, secure the powers of freezing an account for the purpose of investigation. But we know that clearly the EndSARS protest started peacefully, and then it was hijacked and it got out of hand. And I think it's very important for the government to also separate the two. That is to go after the criminals and then also engage the End SARS protesters, as we said, so that we'll find a solution to especially the 5-point complaints that they raise. It's a very delicate situation that should be managed properly so that we don't trample on the rights of the protesters, as Pastor said, but at the same time, again, we don't leave the victims without any hope of getting justice. So the government is in a very difficult situation, and I suggest that people like Pastor Bakari and other well-meaning Nigerians, their advice as to how to handle this situation is very important so that, as he rightly said, it doesn't frustrate or it leads to another protest because of the way it's being handled. So I think that is all I can say, is that people, should be involved, great people should be involved in managing the situation.
As the chairman of the Senate Committee on the Army, we were talking about the role of the Army that night or 20th of October. You heard when the Brigadier General was making his presentation there. I'm very sure that this matter will probably have been brought to your committee, the notice of your committee at the Senate at some point. Let's get your reaction to that.
As at now, actually, there is nothing before the committee in relation to the unfortunate incident that took place at Lekki after the protest. And, immediately that happened to the Senate, went suspended plenary. So maybe it will come up in the next sitting. But as I said, should such thing come up, and especially now there is argument here and there, I think there is the need to investigate what actually happened to get to the root of the matter, get to the truth of the matter. There is no argument between the Army and the Lagos State government, coupled with the fact that we don't have specific figures as to what happened, the number of lives lost or those that. So we'll wait until we get the report. But we as a committee intend to ask the military to give us what actually happened, to tell us what actually happened. And then if there is any other opinion different from that, we'll get to the roots of the matter. That is all I can say for now until the matter comes before the committee or the Senate.
I mean, I'm very sure that this is also something that you have spoken about before now, about the engagement of the Nigerian Army. You said in the past that the Army has been engaged in 33 states over the issue of insecurity, and these are issues of internal security. Whether or not the military should be engaged in that encounter as being a matter of debate. Would you want to weigh in on that also? The involvement of the military on internal security on issue of civil civil engagement. What's your take on it?
Honestly, I don't think that the Nigerian Army should be involved in internal security. But you know the security challenges that we are facing in the country today that led to the drafting of military to out of their barrack to take care of security challenges in almost 33 states. And that is because the police is overstretched. They don't have the number, they don't have the equipment, the intelligence is not there, otherwise all these things would have been avoided. I have said this several times, that the Nigerian Army or armed forces in general, or even the security in this country, they are not on, the number is not enough, they are not well equipped, they are not well trained, and the population is growing. And with that, the number of the population is mostly that of youth. We have over 60 or 70% of the youths. Most of them are unemployed, so they get frustrated And therefore, if there is no intelligence and a Marshall Plan, to control this situation, it can get out of hand. This NSAS protest, as you can see, just spread like wildfire. So it should be a lesson to us, the leaders in this country, to do something. I've said it several times that in a country like ours, if we cannot make it peaceful for everybody to live comfortably, then we, the leaders, will not be comfortable. And as I said, that we have majority of the youths that are unemployed from a very poor background, and finding it very difficult to make a living. If a son of nobody cannot become anybody, then I doubt so much if there will be peace in the country. It is very important to take care of this, and you can only do that when there is security. There will be no law and order if the country is not secured. And how do you secure the country? You have to have the number of the security personnel that is needed. You have to give them the equipment, the tools, and the training. But in this country, you can agree with me, Sheung, that we are lagging behind in that. In fact, if you look at it, compared to even other countries just around us that are not as big, they are not as strong, they are not as powerful as our country, there is law and order in every country. Security and welfare of the citizens should be the priority. In fact, is the main purpose of government. It's there in our constitution.
I'm coming because I know you are also passionate about how the military should be funded. There's just about 121 billion to defense. That means that's every arm of the military in Nigeria. We come to that in a moment. But before we get away from the issue of the agitation of the NSAS, I know you're politicians. A lot of your colleagues have expressed the fear that came out of the agitation against politicians or people in government or people in politics. From your own standpoint, any big lesson for Nigerian politicians as in the aftermath of the NSAS protest?
Yeah, there is. We are representative of the people. Instead of securing ourselves from them, I think we should be much, much closer to our electorates and the people that, that elected us. You have seen the aftermath of the NSAS when the hoodlums took over. We were the first targets. We are the first, and that is because these people think that we have not done enough to protect their interests, and therefore they go after us. I think it's very, very important for politicians to be closer to the people they represent so that at least their grievances can be heard, and whatever you can do, you try to do it. There is a big lesson to learn from what has happened. It is a frustration that has built up over years. You know that since the government took over in 1999, so many graduates have been turned out into the labor market without employment or even opportunities. And worst of it, when they struggle, they get a barricade of frustration, especially this idea that is going around now that if you want to become somebody or even if you want to get a job, you have to know somebody. Several times the youth come to me from my constituency and all over the country to say that they have applied for a job in a particular organization, but they can't get the job because they need to get a note or a word chipped in by a senator or House of Rep. And that's not how it's supposed to be. There is supposed to be a clear procedure that will allow anybody that has the prerequisite qualification to be. You don't have to know somebody. You don't have to be son of somebody before you before you get employment. These are some of the things that are happening out there that is frustrating the youth. And then you have had some of them, they say they don't have any life to live. They've graduated 4 or 5 years ago. They can't get a job and they want to, do business or whatever small trade they are. They get frustrated by, securities and all that. So there's a need to do more to handle this situation that can be very, very explosive.
But Senator, after 5 years of your party at the helm of affairs, your party promised change in 2000 before 2015 election. Are you happy with the situation of things now?
No, I can't say I'm happy truly, Sheung. We have done our best, but that is not enough. But the most frustrating aspect of it is that there are some gaps there that were not necessarily, here we are with the president that we have tried 3 times to get him elected. We didn't succeed. We tried the 4th time and we succeeded. And I know and I believe that truly the President Muhammad Buhari, is a genuine person that have the interests of a common man at heart. He has the integrity, and the competence. But unfortunately, when the government I've said it several times, some people come out in the government to insult me. The kleptocrats in the government are now forming the majority or have formed the majority, and therefore betraying the laudable projects or policies that the president wants to implement. I can tell you that from the beginning, we came in with 3 main agenda. 1 is to secure the country, that is in security. 2 is to fight corruption. And 3 is to provide infrastructure. You cannot say that the president has not performed in these 3 areas. But the impact and then the implementation is the problem. And under normal circumstances, you don't expect the president to do that personally himself. He is supposed to get the able hands. And that is where the problem started. That is where we have the problem. I'll give you an example. In the youths, a case of the youths. When we're campaigning, because we see this, number of youths, massive number of youths, and the president would always ask, what are we going to do with this? That was when the idea of N-Power came on board. And from the first year, he approved 500 billion. And the monies were released for graduates to be employed, especially in teaching and other areas and all that. But if you hear the number and the impact, they are just not, it doesn't add up. You hardly see it on ground, and that's where the problem is. For the past 5 years, the president have been supporting, and then he came up with trader money, he came up with the AMCOM Borrowers Project, he came up recently with the Youth Investment Program of 75 billion, and then another additional 25 billion was set aside to pay attention to the youth requirement that will enable them to take off. But those that are charged with the responsibility of implementing this laudable project, approved by president, are not doing their job. You could see even during the COVID-19 pandemic, when there was lockdown, the president and the business community and non-governmental agencies came in and then gave the support. But what happened? They went up and locked these things in warehouse, and various warehouses. And the people, went to ransack that place. All these things would have been avoided.
All right,
and,
Senator.
I can say that the president.
Yeah,
yes.
Because we need to go on break. But it does look like it's a language of failure that you are describing there. Is that the situation? And in these 5 years, it hasn't been success for your party?
No, it can't be a language of failure. This government is sincere. They are up and doing, and those areas that we came about, we promise on ground. It's just that we didn't get the percentage that we require. Like if we say we
All right.
wanted to take care of security, but
Senator,
still, you know,
yeah.
you can't say the security situation in the country, especially in the Northeast, in 2015, where over 22 local governments was taken over by insurgents. But as it is now, you can't say there is a particular local government that is under the control of the insurgents. But we wanted to get those people back to their local government. That is the challenge. Most of the local government now, because people are scared, their properties have been destroyed. About $99.2 billion destruction have been inflicted on Borno alone. So getting people back on their feet is what the government is doing. And unfortunately,
Senator, let's take a breather just for a moment because we're due for a break. I'll get your concluding moments when we come back from the break. But up next, there is an increase in price of fuel. We assess the state of the Nigerian economy under the Buhari administration. And then we'll come back, we'll get the concluding thoughts of Senator Ali Ndume. Don't go anywhere, everyone. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Let's get our concluding moments with Senator Ali Ndume, chairman of the Army Committee in the Senate. Thank you so much, Senator. Let's wrap up quickly because I'd like to ask you one question as regarding the budget for the Army, and which you've raised a question mark. But this is very important, Senator. With the trend of things we've seen lately and the aftermath of the EndSARS protests, comment briefly and quickly, Senator, if you may, on the proposed social media bill and the plan to check some of the activities online.
Well, this is something that should be debated by the Nigerian public. Initially, I remember in the 8th Senate, a colleague of mine, and I was favorably disposed to that there's a need to control. There's anything in this world that has no control can be, you know, can be disastrous. So I'm not saying that the freedom of speech or expression should be muzzled, but then people should be held responsible for what they say or what they do, because in several cases, fake news, hate speeches, and all that is, and then even like some of these what do you call them, X movies and all that is on everywhere in Nigeria without control, so that you have children not accessing all sorts of information that that can destroy their future. So I feel that there's nothing wrong with having a social media bill to, you know, define what you say or how you say it, and then what are the consequences of speaking out against somebody. Like as a politician, somebody like me, I had that bad experience before. People will come out and just because they want to run you down and say all sorts of things about you, which on the social media, and you have no way of controlling you, holding that person responsible. I think there is a gap on that. But it must go through the normal process. There must be public hearing. Hear out what is the opinion of the people and how it is. There's everything, there should be control in something. Even in the media, the news media channels, I hear sometimes people are being sanctioned or even for doing things that are not right. But at the same time, again, any society that has no freedom of expression or freedom of information also it's not going to be good for us, because it will lead to another thing. But don't forget that the Freedom of Information Bill, for example, was enacted by the Nigerian Senate. So any bill that comes in will be looked at critically, but there should be a law that that guides or controls the social media. It's in every country there is law guiding all ways of life. So I don't have any problem with that. And I think I support the fact that there should be a kind of law that controls or guides the way you express yourself on social media. It's very important. But at
All
the
right,
same
Senator,
time, I
yeah.
don't subscribe to the idea of muzzling people.
All right. So let's speak briefly also on, I see your agitation also. You are not quite happy with the budget for the defense, especially your own committee is bothered about the budget for the Nigerian army. In the fight against insurgency, especially in the northeast region of the country, when you are asking that army is not properly funded, the question is, in what respect and what do you mean exactly about this? Considering the amount of money that have been spent over the past few years, there are several monies that have been budgeted outside the budget. There's some, the president asked for loans, which he asked for the National Assembly to approve. So when you say that there is not enough money budgeted, the question is, what exactly does Senator Ali Ndume mean?
What I'm saying exactly, saying thank you, and that is why I'm even here. This is very, very important. We are at war in this country, in the Northeast, and we are at war with criminals or bandits in the Northwest. We are also at war with the with herdsmen that are attacking, and we have security challenges in the North Central. As a result of tribal and religious conflicts that have overwhelmed the police, and the army needs to be drafted. And as you said, we don't even have the number. And when you don't have the number, and also you don't have the necessary equipment and arms to, carry out this responsibility, then it's as good as you don't have anything. In a country of over 200 million or thereabout, and with a budget of 13 trillion, and you are budgeting 27 billion, a paltry 27 billion for the Nigerian army in a period of war, that does not show seriousness in any way. This 27 billion and the capital I'm talking about is supposed to be the money that they will use to buy ammunition, buy trucks, repair the fixed ones, buy kit the Nigerian army, and do everything that is capital related. Yes, when you look at the figure, the Nigerian army proposed, for example, for their personnel operations, they proposed 567 billion. And in the appropriation that is submitted before the National Assembly now, they proposed 461 billion. That means there's a shortfall of 106 billion. Remember, these are personnel costs. When you send people out in 33 states operating, you have to pay them their allowances, you have to pay them, you have to feed them, you have to buy fuel and all that. Those are operational costs. And their overhead is 21 billion. Hey, that one, yes, they now, in the system of their the so-called envelope, have approved or presented to the National Assembly 20 billion. But then, let me take you to what happened in 2020. The capital budget allocated to the Nigerian army was 34 billion. But out of that, only half of it was released, or near half, or just slightly above that. Even their personnel cost, that is 20 billion, only 11 billion was released to them. And so also is the personnel. The personnel last year was 408 billion, but only 300 billion was released to them. And when you send somebody out there to fight a war and you don't pay him his dues, you can understand the frustration. That's why sometimes so many things, unfortunate things happen, very embarrassing things. But then the problem, the main problem is that army don't complain. They can't complain. They are not politicians. And that's what I'm doing. I go see what they are doing as chairman of the committee and with my committee members, and then speak out. Because the security is number one. In a budget of 13 trillion, in a period of war, and with archaic equipment and ammunitions, and you are budgeting 27 billion. I mean, this is not it. Yes, there is a budget. The president normally provides 100 billion for Operation Lafia Dole. That amount is in the budget. But they don't release it regularly. And as I told you, if you do a common arithmetic, whereby you have over 30,000 troops in the theater, and each soldier is entitled to a daily allowance of 2,000 naira. You multiply 2,000 naira by 30,000. You see the amount you get there is about 70 million. And you multiply that per week, then you get the number. Take it to a year. You know that that 100 billion is not a big thing. And let me say again that even the poor countries around us, the total budget of the Nigerian Armed Forces, if you convert it into dollars by my calculation, is about $1.3 billion. In an army, with our number, the number is another thing. We have less than 150,000 armed forces on ground, including the soldiers. They are not up to 200,000. And then you have this vast land of the country. So if we want to end this war quickly, we must equip the Nigerian army. We must equip the Nigerian Air Force. We must equip the Nigerian Navy. As it is now, they are scavenging around, trying to bring back some of the equipments that they bought. And because there was relative peace, they were not used, they are not serviceable. And in their desperateness, the Chief of Army Staff recently involved the Deacon to start producing their own MRAP. And, this is a locally made something because it did not go through test of time and all that. It doesn't add up. You find soldiers on the field rationing ammunition. And the insurgents come with letters. As I said it before, they seized AK-49 from some of the bandits and insurgents, while our soldiers are still battling with, AK-47. And some of them even are old, and because they have been procured for long. So we need to say it as it is. We need to equip, we need to provide what the Nigerian army wants.
Right.
Then give them a timeline.
All right.
And then say, if you don't get this to the end by so period, then you take whatever measures. Then commit to police too. We don't have the number of the police. If to say we have enough police, drafting the army into the NSAS wouldn't even come up. I was expecting that, first of all, mobile police or anti-protest police would be the first to be drafted, use water cannons, use tear gas, before you end up using maybe at most rubber bullets. That is what is being done. But if you go, the Nigerian police too don't have these things on ground. So it is very important for us to stand up and address the security challenge. If there is no security, there will be no law and there will be no order. And if there will be no law and order, that means there will be no peace. If there is no peace, it means everybody will not sleep well. That is what is happening now. If you think that we are at the top there, you take care of yourself, and most of us, ask for police protection and all that, it will not help. We have seen it.
All right.
It will not help. What will help is to carry the people, especially the masses, the youths, to understand, yes, things are bad. But if you say things are bad and it's okay or it's good with you, then people will get angry, especially when they are the people that elected you to that position anyway.
Senator Alain Dume, Chairman of Senate Committee on the Army, I sincerely appreciate your time tonight on the program and some of the thoughts that you have shared. Thank you so much indeed for coming.
Thank you.
Let's switch gears now from issue of national security to issue of the economy. Some of the statistics about Nigeria's economy are not sweet stories to tell. From the rising inflation rate to rising food price and recently increasing fuel price, many Nigerians may have to cough out more money at the moment when purchasing power may have been impacted drastically by so many factors, including COVID-19. Tonight, we're speaking with an economist and a member of the Presidential Economy Advisory Council, Mr. Bismarck Rwani. He joins me here in the studio. Thank you so much, Mr. Rwani, for joining us. It's been a long time seeing you physically because of COVID-19.
Definitely.
But, there is a very important matter. And usually when we bring you on politics today, Sunday Politics is about the impact of the policy and governance issue on the economy and what the government is doing on the average Nigerian. And so you can give us a benefit of your experience, your knowledge, and of course, of an insider view that you have in the advisory council. Let's begin with the issue of the pump price, Mr. Birwani. There was an increase from 159 to 170 per litre. That's a pump price of petrol. Some people like the PDP have challenged that decision and the justification for that increase. Can you give insight into what may have caused the hike?
First of all, there's been a deregulation of the price of petroleum. And there's a price modulation formula, PPRA format. So if the price of crude oil increases, then the price of pump price of petrol will also increase. If it reduces, the pump price of petrol should actually decline. As far as I know, in the month of October, the price of crude actually came down. It was trading at about $38, $36. So just anecdotally speaking, and I don't have the data, the price of petroleum, refined price of petroleum products should actually be declining. However, there are other things that go into that template, other things like the exchange rate, things like availability of foreign exchange and all of that. So it's a public document, and they make it open to everybody. So transparently, there's no question about the fact that the unions and members of the PPRA include unions, youths, and all of that. So clearly, they must have gone through this before they determine the price. What the Economic Advisory Council advised was the deregulation of the price so that it's controlled by market forces, and that the question is, and then because there's no subsidy, what does the government do with the freed funds that they would have used otherwise for subsidies?
What was stopping the deregulation?
No, there is a deregulation of the price of petroleum products as far as the price of crude is concerned. The one other element that has not been fully deregulated is the fact that the private importers do not have access to foreign exchange, right? And
that's supposed to be supplied by the CBN.
Well, it's the market.
Yeah.
The central bank is part of the market. So obviously, that's a little bottleneck there. But based on crude prices alone, we should see some movement of the price of refined products. But having said that, you must remember that our neighboring countries, like Ghana, Cameroon, Benin, and others, the price of refined products there is far in excess of 170 naira. It's about 250, 260, 270. So,
but the volume of consumption, shouldn't that also affect?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, is there any hope that the Dangote refinery, some other refineries that are coming on stream, is there a ray of hope coming in that light?
Oh, definitely. The economies of scale, Dangote's refinery is about 45% more efficient than any global refinery, any refinery in the world. And Dangote's refinery is supposed to serve as a hub for the whole of West Africa. So if you use the economies of scale, and obviously Nigeria has ratified the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, technically speaking, and from a pure sense of economics, the price per liter should actually decline in terms of the cost of production. Not only Dangote refinery, there's the modular refineries. There are the refineries, the SIC refineries that are going to be sold off, at least the majority interest sold to private sector. So we should see an efficient structure emerging.
So you've described something, Mr. Irwani. Yeah. It does look like that situation has gotten out of the hands of government.
Yes.
It's the market forces. But the question is, in the light of what you've explained, are there possible ways or alternatives other than increasing the pump price of the fuel that the government could have considered? I'm looking at the impact on the average Nigerian now.
Yeah, but you're saying that the objective wasn't to increase the price. The objective is to free the price from control. So if the price of crude increases, then the refined product price will increase. If the price of crude declines, then we would see a reduction in the price of refined products. The question is that when in October we saw a decline in the price of crude to 35, 37, why did we not see a reduction in the price of the pump price? So that's the question that we need to interrogate and say, what happened? And so what one would do is to look at the template and see exactly what happened when the price of crude declined and we didn't see a reduction in the price. And now the price of crude is increasing and we are seeing that. So it's like I said, it's a template and we need to interrogate it to see whether it's been efficiently followed.
Does the template work? That's the question.
It should work.
Okay, so I mean, we've seen these undulating nature of the prices over 4 or 5 times now.
No, but we saw the price go down to 120.
Absolutely.
Then it came back up. What I'm saying is that if you take the average prices over the months, there were months when it came down, and we didn't, at least in October, we didn't see that drop. So maybe that's going to reflect in the next time around, but definitely we should see the movement, reflect global prices.
Okay, so I mean, we're going on break in a few seconds, but how do you explain to those who've debated that, considering the prevailing economic crunch already confronting Nigerians, a price hike should not be in consideration at all? That's a debate.
Well, the objective is not a price hike. The objective is to have a free pricing modulation process, right? If global prices increase, and the question is, what has the government, or what is the government doing with the monies that have been freed up? If they've been used to have an impact on the people, then you wouldn't feel that negative impact.
How do we monitor that? Because when the subsidies were being paid, we knew the price, the cost of that. But how then are we able?
No, that's why it's a democracy. The only way you can monitor it is to ensure that you ask the government, what are you doing with it? And so the government publishes a financial statement every month. Questions have to be asked, how is it being used? And is it being used efficiently? Is it being used effectively? And is the impact being felt? If the impact is not being felt, then the people have to question
That's a critical question, because
absolutely,
the man and the woman who are watching us right now, who are paying more to fuel their generator to watch us right now, are considering that what they paid in the last year or early this year, and they are paying more to watch us right now. They're asking the question as what benefit? Perhaps they have not gotten more increase in their salary, but they are paying more for other things. But there are other issues that I'd like you to explain, Mr. Rwani, because it's always interesting to have these conversations with you for the benefit of our viewing public. We take another break. And when we return, there are plans by the government to borrow more money. We find out if that is a safe economic path to tread. Mr. Rwani is here to give us insight into that. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Approval of payments of debts in the sum of 2.996 billion from the list of the earlier verified contract has already been completed. We have paid up to today 831 contractors as at the end of September 2020. And there is also debts being processed that is currently ongoing of another list of 188 contracts for approval. This, when approved, will be funded from the balance that is still standing in the service-wide vote. We also have verified payments, which we will be placing for payment through a promissory notes issuance program, a list comprising 30 major contractors in the sum of 35.813 billion has been verified by FICA and recommended for the issuance of promissory notes for the consideration of the Federal Executive Council, after which the request will be coming to the Parliament also for approval. We've also got a stock of some verified and unverified payments that are being worked on. We have a list of 17.64 billion that have been verified, and then there's another stock of 62.538 billion that are in various stages of the verification process.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Mr. Bismarck Iwani, an economist and a member of the Presidential Advisory Council, Economic Advisory Council. Thank you so much, Mr. Iwani, for joining us. So I wanted to get a sense because Nigerians will pay more in a lot of things. There is an upward and increase in food price, fuel price, and COVID-19 is impacting on their lives. Is the government caught between the sea and the devil in this sense?
When you're
Or
confronted,
maybe could they have done anything for the average Nigerian to better their lives in this very difficult situation?
first of all, yes, I think they've done as much as you can do within the context of what the options are. The price of oil came down from average of 70 to 60 to 40, all the way to 30, and then went back up. The projections when COVID started was that you would see a situation where the Federal Allocation Committee would be sharing only 400 billion naira instead of what it was before, averagely of 700 and something billion naira. But because of the fact that we had the IMF disbursement of $3.4 billion, we had some support from the African Development Bank, we had some support from other places, and prudent management of some of the resources. Remember last year, this time, VAT was 5%. VAT then, due to the work of our committee on the minimum wage, we increased the VAT to 7.5%. And that has made it possible for what was shared even this month was 650 billion naira. Last month was about 720. So it never got to 400 billion naira. So the truth is that the federal and state governments probably have more resources than was envisaged when the crisis started. Because what economists can tell you that based on what they have, this is what it flows. So you look at 4 different buckets. One is the macro, is the economy growing. The economic growth in second quarter was minus 6.1. The results of the third quarter are going to come out on the 23rd of this month. And God willing, with some luck, maybe you get about minus 4 or minus 5%. Because of NSAS and other things, you are going to go. And other COVID resurgence, this year, the most likely outcome is that we'll have about minus 4.6% growth.
At the end of Q4?
At the end, no, that's for the average for the year.
Okay, average. Okay.
For the first quarter, we had 1.85.
Yeah.
So if you have that situation, if you are growing negatively, contracting, the same things happening all over the world, you are bound to make some hard choices. So the fact that the revenue has declined, but not declined as much, the growth is negative, the fiscal is challenged, and that's why you have the deficit about 5.4 trillion naira and increased borrowing. The external is weak because we've been depleting reserves and we've been rationing foreign exchange, so the externals are weak. So what is key now is how do you get investment into the system? It is with private investment across the states, private investment in the federal, across the federation. That is what is going to create jobs, and that is what is going to take us out of this. The government does not have the capacity and does not have the resources to solve all of these problems. That is the truth.
There's a big revenue problem.
Yes.
And the Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, said that Nigeria is taking a $750 million loan from the World Bank to help combat the effects of the pandemic on Nigeria's economy. I mean, this is actually for the state governments. Is that a right way? Is it a safe place for us to be? Considering that over 3 trillion naira is what we have budgeted for debt servicing in our 2020 budget.
First and foremost, the World Bank loans are concessionary loans.
Okay.
Very low interest, long maturity. So those are the things you need. They're as good as equity if you're running a private company. So if you can meet the conditions precedent to drawing down those loans, it's good for you. But then using it for consumption, right, which is palliatives and all that, does not do much. It helps to keep things up. But what we are looking for are things that have an investment multiplier impact. So whilst on one hand, you use the World Bank palliative money to, at least if the palliatives stay out of the warehouses and get to the people, that will be good. But the most important thing is, what is the level of gross fixed gross capital formation and capital investment in this country, we're still at about $110 billion in a $450 billion economy. It's not enough. Our aggregate output will not grow if we don't have increased investment. The investment comes from two angles: one, government; two, private sector investment. The investment comes from two angles: one, government; two, private sector. The government investment multiplier is not as efficient as the private sector investment multiplier. The private sector will invest as long as they think that their monies are safe and they can get a decent return. They do not like volatile and unstable policy environment. That is what we need to do. Ease of doing business, there are many things that are being done. But we have to be consistent. And that is what, in the policymaking community, there's a lot of efforts being made to ensure that truth is being told to the government so that the government can do the right things. And that's what's happening.
I mean, it's also been advised that state governments need to do more in cutting costs. So it came up when the Lagos government said that they will repeal the pension law, which gives benefits to former governors and deputy. Well, we've seen Kwara State also going in that direction. Is that enough? Is that sufficient in terms of cutting costs of governance?
Well, first and foremost, it shouldn't have been there in the first place. Anybody who wants to be a governor, the amount of money you spend for a governorship campaign is far in excess of all the pension you're talking about. So those who won will get a pension. Those who lost will pension. So first of all, it was a frivolous act in the first place. So
economically, it's not significant.
Yeah, but it's a signal. The signal that the governments are now beginning to realize that profligacy is not a part of governance. So the state governments have to run an economy. They're getting about 1.5 trillion in VAT because 85% of VAT goes to the states, 15% stays with the federal government. And if you look at the states, look at them as a group or individually, you'll find that some states are doing extremely well in terms of use of thin resources. And we've done this analysis. A state like Edo State has done extremely well with very limited resources, and you could see the results, and the people actually responded by saying, yes, in spite of the limited resources, we think these guys are doing their job. And you could see the result. The same is going to be happening as you go into the various states. So it is important, one, that there's no waste. Two, that this signal goes to the people that these governments are serious. In spite of the fiscals, you cannot be wasting money on...
But if you are to advise a better way to cut costs, I mean, you said this is not carry much weight. What should the state governors be doing?
First of all, the overstaffing of the public service. You need to rationalize, but if you are doing that, it must coincide with new investments so that these people who are going to be rationalized can go into jobs created by the private sector. So you can't, it's not either or. It's not a binary choice. It's a thing that has to be done totally. So we need to have private investment. We need to have policies that make sense. You can't have inflation at 14, 15%, and you have interest rates at 2%. Nobody's going to invest in that environment. We need to bring those things back up. The Minister of Finance was talking about promissory notes being issued to contractors. We need to rationalize the debt. We need to make sure that we have an efficient fiscal system that complements the private sector capital accumulation to make sure that there's growth. As long as there's no growth and population is growing at about 3.2%, there will be difficulty. But having said that, there are no easy options. There's no silver bullet. The truth is that this is work in progress, and there are things I can say confidently that 2021 is going to be a better year than 2020 because of all the difficulties. And thank God we have a change in the US. We have the Chinese, the Asians came up with a free trade zone today, and then we're also having our own African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Hopefully the borders will be open, and hopefully we will have some adjustments to the exchange rate to make it much more efficient, right? So that people can get foreign exchange when they want it. The money policy will be much more forward-looking and impactful. So all of these things put together, I think we'll have an economy that takes off next year.
Yeah, I mean, it's usually in form of economic advisory and projection. That's the time that you in your sector, but sometimes it sounds like prophecy. So I wanted you to use the next 30 seconds or so that we close the program for the average Nigerian who does not understand the technicalities of the language of economics, but they are looking forward to what a year it has been, 2020. But they're looking forward that when 2020 ends, maybe 2021 will give us a better year. What would you be telling them?
2021, I think the vaccine will make sure that we're not going to be killed by COVID. 2, I think that with the cost-reflective tariffs, there's going to be more investment in power, and then power is going to be more stable in 2021. I think that with the completion of the Dangote refinery and petrochemical and fertilizer, we are going to have some hope on the petroleum side. And I think that some sanity will return to the foreign exchange markets and the money markets so that things will become, there'll be equilibrium. So all that said, so I think that in 2021, we could see growth of about 1.4% at the end of 2021 with some luck. Who knows?
Hopefully, those are some economic prophecy.
Touch wood.
Thank you, Mr. Bismarck. Always a pleasure having you talk to us on this. Perhaps some stories and news that will make our viewers sleep well tonight. That's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Shoakim Bale. Bye-bye.